Write that down, Fumi Saito.
Hello from Burbank, California. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Write That Down on the Fight Game Media Network. Yes, I'm Justin Knipper. I edit for FightGameMedia.com. I'm a staff writer at WrestlingObserver.com. I also work for Pro Wrestling Noah and Cyberfight. And I'm back with Pro Wrestling's leading pro wrestling author, teacher, broadcast journalist, historian, sociologist, Mr. Fumi Saito. Thank you for joining us yet again. We are today talking about Mr. Seiji Sakaguchi. A lot of people, fans today, like to talk about the big four, the four pillars, or Shiten no. And when we hear that term, we often think about the All Japan Big Four, but I would say that the first Big Four in Japanese pro wrestling would consist of Mr. Sakaguchi and Antonio Inoki, and Giant Baba and Kintaro Oki. I think those were the first real Big Four that were an absolute force in Japanese pro wrestling, especially from the 60s and on. Sakaguchi, the best way to put it is how Fumi put it on today's show. Sakaguchi is like a gorilla Monsoon type character. He had a great career. I don't know why I said it like that. But he wasn't as interested in fame, glory, popularity, not as much as Inoki was. That's not this. Their personalities were different. It's not a knock against Inoki. Inoki was the star. Sakaguchi was the one who steered the ship, though. We talked a lot about that today, and he is one of the most important characters in this Japanese pro wrestling story. And he's still with the company. He's been a stalwart. If you're going to use the word stalwart, you can use it with Seiji Sakaguchi. We talked about his career, his time in the States, his time in the ring and outside of the ring. Talked about his sons.
Write that down, Fumi Saito.
Back to basics with a great episode today. Let's learn about Mr. Seiji Sakaguchi. But before we get into that, please subscribe to the Fight Game Media Network podcast feed. You can do it on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, Downcast, wherever you are usually listening to your podcast. Please hit the subscribe button. Helps us out very much. All right, let's jump in. Seiji Sakaguchi. All right, today, Seiji Sakaguchi. There's so many overlooked aspects of this man's career.
Oh, his importance in Japanese wrestling.
Yeah.
His position and his roles in New Japan, or just the Japanese wrestling history as a whole.
At the beginning
he was Golden Rookie for JWA, All Japan Wrestling Association, and he was a 1965 National Judo, the openweight champion, Judo, and also 66 that the Brazil Judo World Cup third place winner, and also again 65 national judo champion in Japan. And he didn't quite make 64 Tokyo Olympic, and found out that the 68 Mexico Olympic didn't even have judo. You know what I'm saying? And if he stayed with judo world, that he was going to be just a sort of like instructor or a college professor, or that the person from Judo Association. And he told me one time that he was a wrestling fan growing up. When he was little, he grew up in Kurume city of Fukuoka. When he was a kid, Ricky Dawson and Masahiko Kimura and Sharp Brothers came to Fukuoka, and he watched it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and then it was really hard in 60s that if you're a wrestling fan in the national level judoka, you couldn't tell your teacher or the coach or the headhunter, like a big wig of Judo Association that you're a wrestling fan. They say, oh, they're so fake, right? And he couldn't tell these people that he wants to be a wrestler. So on 25th, birthday of, the day he became 25th, 25 years old, he's, quietly left judo world and signed with Yoshino Sato of JWA to become wrestler. The same day, they put Sakaguchi and Giant Baba on a plane, and then send them to California. Isn't that interesting?
What
That
year was that?
1967.
1967.
Yeah.
On their way to the States.
64, yeah, like a 64 Tokyo Olympic, he didn't make it, but he was national judo champion 65, 66, and also third place winner World Cup Judo in Brazil. Then another national title the following year, and found out that the 1968 Mexico Olympics didn't even have judo as an official, sport. So said, should I wait another 4 years to go to Munich? Or should I? He was already, he graduated from Meiji University, same university Masa Saito was in. And actually, Seiji Sakaguchi is 1 year older than Masa Saito, but same Meiji University athletic fraternity. The Masa Saito went to Olympic in judo, wrestling, and Sakaguchi was a prospect to go to Olympic, but there's only one person in each weight class go to Olympic, right? Then he wasn't placed, but he won the 2 national champion and third place in the World Cup, and just as good, right? And wanted to go to Mexico Olympic 4 years later, but there was no judo. And he started, graduated from college, and he started working for the company called Asahi Kase, that's a real big company, like a steel company, and he secretly wanted to become professional wrestler. He was a wrestling fan growing up. And the big guy, right? He's 196 centimeter. That would be 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah. He was not too much shorter than Giant Baba.
Giant Baba, right. And 125 kilos. That would be like a 270. Big guy,
dude.
Yeah, cool.
Big guy, and great shape, real athlete, and not too many wrestlers like him since then and around that time.
I wanted to do this episode is that it's today's English-speaking audience, finally getting so interested in Japanese wrestling and Japanese history, and probably because of Keiji Muto, the Masachono, the little bit of Haramoto, the Misawa, Kobashi, Kawada, Taue, right? 4 pillars, and 3 Musketeers of New Japan, into Shinsuke Nakamura, Hiroshi Tanahashi, to today's Kazuchika Okada. But you have to go back a little bit to know more about it. And Antonio Inoki, great. Everybody knows his legacy and history and the importance in wrestling history, right? But I think that Seiji Sakaguchi's legacy has been so overlooked. Agree? Yellow.
Yep. I think with Sakaguchi, I think that people don't realize how long he's been involved with New Japan and how he's been pulling the strings and saving the company for so many years.
Saving the company. But first, he started out February 17th of 1967. His 25th birthday was the day he signed with the old JWA, that Japan Wrestling Association. The Rikidozan's old company, but Rikidozan was gone, and it was run by a guy Yoshino Sato. Okay, but he the day he was signed with the JWA, he wanted to hide from Judo Association people because the bigwig from Judo don't want their judoka to become pro wrestler. It would probably bad experience with Masahiko Kimura for one thing. And also, it's like going in there, great. It's a show business. You'll make big money, but you're leaving judo world, so to speak, right? But he wanted to, because, okay, if you stayed with judo people and then judo association, well, he'll probably coach college. Is that it?
Yeah, it wasn't in the Olympics every year.
Judoka until you were about 28, 30? Yeah. And he basically signed, because he was a wrestling fan growing up, he just couldn't tell judo people about it. And to make a long story short, that he signed with JWA, and that was the same day they sent Sakaguchi with Giant Baba into the States. Then he actually debuted in the States. And for the next 5 years, see, Giant Baba had like a 2-year run in America, right? And after that, Antonio Inoki had another 2-year run in America. Sakaguchi actually had like a 4-year run with in America. Like
Mhm.
1 year, then he went to Georgia, went to Florida, went to Detroit, went to California, and just 1 year stay and come back for spring tournament. Then after the spring World League tournament, he goes back to States and spend another year in America. Then following year, he comes back for the World League tournament and then work, like a 6 weeks World League tournament. And right after that, he goes back to States. And all in all, he spent first 4 years of his career basically in America.
Hmm.
Longer, a lot longer than anybody like Baba or Inoki or Jumbo Tsuruya, Fujinami, Choshu, anybody. That's interesting, right?
Hmm.
Well, because they could do so because JWA had both Baba and Inoki and the third person, Kintaro Oki from Korea, together still. And the golden rookie, Sakaguchi, could be in excursion forever until he's ready. So he basically came back as a main event guy right away. The big guy, yeah.
What were some of the first big time matches, singles matches that Sakaguchi had when he came back to Japan?
The 1969, the 11th annual World League tournament, third place. That was the year Inoki won for the first time. 26-year-old Inoki. Actually, Sakaguchi is 1 year older than Inoki.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was always kind of like the big brother.
Yeah, 1 year older, but a lot less career. Because he wouldn't be, turn pro wrestler until he was 25 because he was in judo so long, But the 69 World League tournament that he had a single match against people like Bobo Brazil, the Chris Markov, the Gorilla Monsoon, the rookie Bobby Duncombe, and just all single match against every single American talent. Then went back to States. Then following year that he came back, 1970s World League, 12th annual World League tournament. He had a single match against people like Don Leo Jonathan, the convict, if you remember, big costume convict, like a Stan Fraser. And you have that. Yeah. And he came back once a year, like when I was a kid. Then he'll be gone again for the whole year. Then 71, he finally came back. He's pretty much stayed 67, 68, 69, 70. Yeah. Until 71. So it's all of 4 years, first 4 years he spent basically in America. And useless trivia was like when he was staying in Amarillo, Texas, that the apartment next door, there was Dick Murdoch. Yeah.
Did they ever meet up? Did they ever cross paths?
Of course, because Dick Murdoch, was working in New Japan all through the 80s. And I believe Sakaguchi was the one who, got the Dick Murdoch, from All Japan. I mean, right next to. I mean, like all these wrestlers, like when he was with, like traveling in Florida, the Texas, the Georgia, all kinds of territory at the time, right? So Sakaguchi was staying in one territory in Georgia 7 months, Texas for another 8 months, back to Florida for another 8 months. All these, he met and learned the language. And he was challenging Dory Funk Jr. for the NWA title while he was in the States. Yeah. Of course, they crossed paths each and every one of them.
Yeah. I mean, aside from Rikidozan, and Rikidozan's tours weren't as regular. I mean, Sakaguchi was one of the first kind of regular foreign or Japanese wrestlers to stay around for that long in the States. 4 years is a long time back then.
Yeah, after Sakaguchi, there was people like Killer Khan, Great Kabuki, Kendo Narasaki, and of course Masa Saito was always there. Starting 67. And they Sakaguchi and Masa Saito both went to the same college, Meiji University.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, but they were friends. And Masa Saito in Olympic wrestling team and Sakaguchi in national judo team. Like a big jock fraternity in Meiji University. So they get together a little bit later on, after they became management in New Japan. But as an active wrestler, yes, both Masa Saito and Seiji Sakaguchi was in a World League tournament of JWA in like a 71, 72. Yeah. And 72, if you remember, Inoki tried to revolutionize the office and ended up getting kicked out of the company, right? December of 71, Inoki was terminated. And that's how Inoki started New Japan Pro Wrestling in March of 72. After Inoki left, Giant Baba resigned and he wanted to, start his All Japan Pro Wrestling. It was July of 1972. Giant Baba started All Japan Pro Wrestling. That left Sakaguchi as top talent of JWA all of a sudden, 5-year rookie, right? But he all of a sudden, Inoki's gone, Baba's gone. Well, after Inoki was gone, at a short period of time, Baba and Sakaguchi became Tokyo Towers and had an international tag team tournament title. The same international tag team title that today's All Japan has, the same physical belt. Amazing, right?
It's so old. It still looks...
Yeah, and also after Inoki left, that Michiaki Yoshimura took Sakaguchi as partner and became Asian Tag Team Champion, the same belt that All Japan has still today. And when Inoki was kicked out of JWA, he had the United National title, the 1/3 of today's Triple Crown. Yeah, Sakaguchi became the United National champion, beating King Craw, the original Don Craw fought from Canada that happened in Los Angeles at the Olympic Auditorium. Olympic Auditorium was almost like part of Japan territory. A lot of things happened.
Yeah, a lot of big title changes, big matches, TV matches that they would air in Japan.
Yeah. In fact, it was Los Angeles Olympic Auditorium at the Giant Baba and Sakaguchi as Tokyo Tower, beating Dorian Terry the Funks, then got the international tag team title back to Japan. That was also in LA. It was referee Red Shoes Duggan. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's kind of useless trivia. But the Sakaguchi basically inherited all 3 belts Inoki had, right after Inoki left, all 3 belts: international tag team belts, Asian tag team belt, and UN singles belt that the Sakaguchi basically inherited and became the top guy in the company. But it was like Baba's gone, Inoki's gone, for 8-month period that the Sakaguchi had to carry, the oldest company, and then he felt that he was sinking boat nonetheless, right?
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
It was actually Seiji Sakaguchi who saved Inoki's New Japan Pro Wrestling. See, between March of 72 to March of 73, Antonio Inoki had to carry, the newly formed New Japan Pro Wrestling for 1 year without television. That's impossible, right? And Sakaguchi was actually the one who brought the TV Asahi deal with him and joined New Japan.
Was saving the company, and they still have to deal with.
And shortly after that, the old JW went down finally for the for final time. So it was actually Sakaguchi who basically saved, like, really shaky, like a first year New Japan. Antonio Inoki was really popular, but he didn't have TV first year. It's with network TV's budget, that's impossible to run this big company, right? And Sakaguchi brought himself and young Kengo Kimura, young Ozawa, who later become Killer Khan, and another person called the Daigoro Oshiro, retired later. But the 4 wrestlers joined and left Kintaro Oki, that Takachiho, who later become Great Kabuki, the Sakurada, who later become Kendo Nagasaki, that the Great Kojika, the Matsuoka, Umanosuke Ueda, all these senior left. I mean, they didn't want to join New Japan, Inoki's New Japan, because they were the very company that terminated Inoki 8 months before that. And TV Asahi had a feeling that your Sakaguchi's JWA and Inoki's New Japan should merge, and we'll carry the program. And it was Sakaguchi and TV Asahi producers that really handled this thing, and that the rest of the JWA's old crew didn't want to join Inoki's new company. But the Sakaguchi said, no, I told Inoki I'm coming, so I'm going, right? And took 4 young wrestlers with him, then joined New Japan April of 1973 with television. Then Inoki finally have TV Asahi 8 o'clock Friday night television. It didn't happen overnight. Inoki actually struggled 1 year, very first year of New Japan. But it was Sakaguchi's deal who brought TV Asahi's network, the contract with him. That part is so overlooked, right?
And from the mid 70s on, how long did Sakaguchi stay active as a wrestler in the ring before he went?
Until 1990.
Okay, until 1990.
He didn't retire, officially retire until 1990. But after like the mid 80s, he probably worked 1 match a tour. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Or he maybe be in a tag team or something.
A little bit. And some, I told you before that it's like Dave, like in 1985-ish, that they announced Andre the Giant against Akira Maeda, right? Andre the Giant against Akira Maeda, or big card, right? Then Andre canceled the tour. So it's like, oh, wow, what are you going to do? Then Sakaguchi comes in, Sakaguchi against Akira Maeda. Oh, wow, that's just as good, right? And there was a time, Andre against Brody. They announced at the Osaka Castle Hall that both Andre and Brody canceled the tour. Oh my gosh, one of the main cards gone. Then Sakaguchi come in and have some single match. It's like, all right, just as good. Actually, it's like I always use this analogy that it's kind of like Beatles and Apple Studio. Antonio Inoki was spending more than they were making all through 70s and 80s. And like a crazy idea like Antonio Inoki against Muhammad Ali and paying Muhammad Ali $6 million for 1976 money. It's crazy, right? And would Inoki, the president of New Japan company, would Inoki come into office and do the desk work? No. It was always the Lieutenant Sakaguchi that did all these, actual work, the company people and wrestling people and promoter, TV people. He really handled it. So I always feel that the Sakaguchi was much like your Gorilla Monsoon and Pat Patterson of WWE, kind of like he was a respected wrestler and very big superstar, but at the same time, he didn't have in-ring ego like Inoki had. Sakaguchi stepped down a little bit, and he always took care like backstage business. If Sakaguchi was there, it'll work out. You know what I'm saying? Oh, like TV people or NWA affiliate, that Vince McMahon Sr. and Antonio Inoki's WWF partnership. The Johnny Powers and NWF, the tour to Korea, tour to Brazil, tour to Mexico. That after Inoki had this Muhammad Ali fight and paying Ali $6 million or so, that the TV Asahi basically covered it, right? Because of the money New Japan owed to TV Asahi at the time, Inoki had to do a series of martial arts fight. against kickboxer, against the karate fighter, all kinds, martial judoka, worldwide. It's like non-wrestling fight. And Sakaguchi will travel to, America, Mexico, and other places with Inoki, and Sakaguchi probably didn't even want to do it, but he usually had a judo jacket match underneath Inoki, if you remember. Yeah. And also the first the title that 1973 version of New Japan created, it was NWA North American Tag Team title. Well, when Inoki wanted to join NWA, that they basically created their own NWA North American Tag Team title, and the tag team champion was Johnny Powers and Pat Patterson, and Inoki and Sakaguchi fly out to Los Angeles Olympic Auditorium and have that title, the NWA North American Tag Team title match, and it was taped by TV Asahi and goes home. So Sakaguchi always needed to be there, basically like babysitting all kinds of Inoki's ideas all along. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And also when, Inoki wanted to start the World League, like a spring tournament, just like JWA, it was always Sakaguchi who was there for him. And while Jan Baba always had NWA champion, like people like Dory Funk, the Hardy Race, the Jack Briscoe, the whatnot, right? Sakaguchi had single match against Inoki, so it's a big card. See, it took New Japan years and years to bring in name American talent until they signed with Vince McMahon Sr. and they start bringing in people like Andre the Giant, and it was Sakaguchi who handled it, because on paper, Inoki is the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Everybody knows about it. But would Inoki come in, do the desk work in the morning? No, it was always Sakaguchi, who was also top talent in the ring, but he was Lieutenant Sakaguchi who always handled it. Inoki would spend more than they were making, but Sakaguchi was there to sort of like stop it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was that's why that the Sakaguchi's accomplishment in his role in New Japan's history and in New Japan's business been so overlooked. In-ring talent, he stepped out. I mean, he stepped down, not retiring, but it was time for Fujinami to be star. It was time for Riki Choshu to be star. Akira Maeda, Nobuhiko Takada, and a little bit later on, Muto, Chono, Hashimoto, Kensuke Sasaki, Hiroshi Hase, all these people. Actually, Sakaguchi wasn't even retired. He just didn't even work in the ring anymore. And when Inoki really became 1989, I'm talking about, that run for public office and became real, national politician. Then 89, Sakaguchi finally became the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. But his work was such all along. I mean, all through mid 70s into 80s, it was Sakaguchi who handled all the business. And also, people like Bam Bam Bigelow, who was regular with New Japan, he categorized himself as a Gucci boy. Sakaguchi's boy. Yeah, it's mid to late 80s, there was a Masa Saito crew of American, like Vader, Tony Honda, Scott Norton. Yeah. But before that, you're talking like Billy Jack Haynes, the guys from Calgary, the Bam Bam Bigelow, the Konga the Barbarian, and all these, the previous guys were all Gucci guys, Sakaguchi
guys, huh?
Yeah. Oh, the biggest name, Dick Murdoch and Master Superstar.
I see.
Yeah. That was the Booker Sakaguchi's talent, But he's, like I said, he doesn't have this in-ring ego that much. Of course, he's a superstar too. Sakaguchi, yeah, he was always very much number two, right? Inoki number one and Sakaguchi number two. And also tag team, Inoki and Sakaguchi tag team, always main event, the early to mid 70s. But the Inoki only had this NWF title. That Sakaguchi had this North American heavyweight title. One time he beat Johnny Powers to become NWF version of North American title, and another time he beat Pat Patterson to become WWF version of North American title. But he didn't even have this strong, superstar ego, and those titles that Sakaguchi held was quickly forgotten. Didn't even vacant. It just wasn't even mentioned, anymore. And to make stars, Sakaguchi and Riki Choshu as North American Tag Team Champions, that the Riki Choshu's very first belt.
Young Riki Choshu.
Younger Riki Choshu is like a shorter permed, punch perm.
Wrestling in California early on.
Yeah, in Montreal, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was Sakaguchi's role always to, sort of step down, because everybody knows he's big number 2. But if he stepped down, somebody else will be a star, And pretty much in every like a spring World League tournament or later on Madison Square Garden Series tournament in spring, they renamed it. That Sakaguchi, it's a round robin tournament. So Sakaguchi will have single match against people like Fujinami or like a younger upcoming talent. He would have good match and not win. Does that make sense?
He's one of those wrestlers who, we were kind of talking about it earlier, he'd be the replacement that everybody was satisfied with, right? He was the kind of guy that he was always over whether he won or whether he lost. People really seemed to connect and enjoy Sakaguchi over the years, and he was always...
And what's so special about him? About 30-year period, he always looked the same.
Yeah.
The same crew cut and the red trunks.
Never got out of shape. Yeah.
Yeah, always in good shape, but doesn't even want to be in the main event. But when you go to the building to watch wrestling, Sakaguchi's walking around.
Sure.
Is he working tonight? No, he isn't. But he's here. I mean, that's why he is your Gorilla Monsoon. Yeah.
I mean, even today, if you see one of the New Japan ceremonies, or if they're honoring somebody and they're doing something, it's
gray hair Sakaguchi's still there. Yeah.
Yep. Big tall guy in the front.
Yeah.
Tall guy with gray hair now, but
always taller than, like a couple inches taller than Inoki. Yeah.
Right. He was a big guy. He was almost as big as Baba.
He was like a 3 inches taller than Masa Saito and Riki Choshu.
Yeah.
And they're taller than everybody. Probably taller than Keiji Muto. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So, and also he was instrument of he was actually a one-time figurehead NWA president too. If you remember 1990, 1991 WCW and New Japan partnership, 91, very first year of G1 Climax, that famous against Chono, and Chono went over like almost big upset, and people throwing pillars. Pillows at the Sumo Palace, right? The famous scene. In 1992, second annual G1 Climax was NWA World Heavyweight Championship Tournament. It was around the time WCW had both WCW World Heavyweight title and NWA World Heavyweight title. WCW World Heavyweight title the same year, July Great American Bash, that Lex Luger became WCW World Heavyweight Champion. And the following month, that August of 1992, New Japan held G1 Climax to make new NWA World Heavyweight. So there's 2 sets of world title. And that the second year, 92 summer G1 Climax, New Japan, they sent people like Bill Watts and Dusty Rhodes to be the witness, and Sakaguchi will be sitting there with him. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that 92 G1 Climax final, and also final of NWA World Heavyweight Championship Tournament, Rick Rude against Masa Chono, the famous match. Then Masa Chono won the NWA World title and put the flare gold belt around his waist, if you remember. So Sakaguchi was like Bill Watts, Dusty Rhodes generation. So around that time period, he was sitting in the desk with them. Yeah. And also, if you remember that the year he became New Japan president. It was 1990. It was the only time Giant Baba would sit down with New Japan and have an exchange. Like New Japan's Tokyo Dome card, Jumbo Tsura and Yoshiaki Yatsu and New Japan, Stan Hansen, All Japan wrestler coming to New Japan and work Tokyo Dome show. It was Sakaguchi and Baba together. See, if it was Inoki as a president, Baba wouldn't sit down with him. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was always Sakaguchi, like a very trustworthy promoter and a boss and a businessman.
Reliable, stable.
Yeah, and also not big superstar ego, although he was. So I say he's so much like Gorilla Monsoon and Pat Patterson.
Yeah. When you said that earlier off the air, I think that felt like the best analogy for Sakaguchi.
Yeah, because in his, active wrestling days, he was also a star, but he probably didn't want to be the top guy, what went up must come down, probably.
Sure. And they were big guys. There was nothing to prove, in terms of toughness. They were big guys. Nobody was going to mess with them. So that ego part of it was off the table.
In old-fashioned territory style wrestling, usually active wrestlers were bookers, like your Bill Watts, Dusty Rhodes, Fritz Von Erich, The Sheik, Dick the Bruiser, all the territory, Vern Gagne for that matter. Top wrestlers were also the guy who was giving finishes, right? And it's very interesting about New Japan's structure that nobody can go into Inoki's private dressing room. Much like Giant Baba's private dressing in the building, for All Japan's case, the Giant Baba always had his own private dressing room, right? In the new All Japan building. Stan Hansen, Terry Gordy, Steve Williams, and John Yes was about the 4 wrestlers who could actually walk in to Baba's dressing room and sit down and talk. Okay.
Wow.
That was about it. And Inoki's case, New Japan, Inoki always had this either private dressing room or the big dressing room, but the way back there, and put the curtain around him, and so nobody can see him. Okay. And actually, none of these American top talent, including people like Bruiser Brody, or the Vader, they cannot go into, or Inoki wouldn't talk to any wrestlers once you're in the building. You wouldn't, let alone, they're not Japanese wrestlers, but the American wrestlers who's gonna, be fighting Inoki. No, they cannot come into Japanese wrestling room. Okay, but it was always Sakaguchi who would actually physically speak with American talent at the building. Is that interesting?
He was the guy. He was the main contact person.
Yeah, much like your Bill Watts or Ole Anderson.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
There's always the figurehead person that we know is on top and we hear is on top and we read their name, and there's the person who actually is in there doing the work on the ground. There's always that dynamic.
Inoki, Sakaguchi, had this separate role, and they got along just fine for 30 years. It's almost like a miracle, because I believe Sakaguchi didn't compete with Inoki in that, sense.
It seemed like a good relationship, good fit for both of their personalities.
Yeah, if Sakaguchi had Inoki style ego, that wouldn't last, right?
No way, especially back then.
Yeah, so it's both active, both very much on top talent, but it was always Inoki the king. But he would not talk to, wrestlers directly, that you have to go through Sakaguchi. Is that interesting?
That is.
Yeah. So, but it was like always that, it was good for business, because it shouldn't be easy to get to Inoki. Nobody. It's always Sakaguchi that's standing right there, and he would be the person to be talking. Any American, doesn't matter what big name talent, that it has to be Sakaguchi you'll be talking to. Yeah, but that's probably another reason that the American talent had easier time with All Japan than the New Japan, because I've heard over the years, over the decades, that New Japan always had too many bosses.
Mm.
You'll never get to talk to Inoki. You'll never get there. Sometimes it's Sakaguchi. You've gone there, pretty far. But usually you be speaking Taiga Hattori. That's it.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was like that. So it's like a cluster of this hierarchy there in the company that you'll never get to Inoki directly.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Sakaguchi who really handled it real well. That's why I say he was like your gorilla monsoon, and
Yeah, it seems like he sort of created the system for overseas relations, for excursions for Japanese wrestlers. He sort of, he was part of the template, writing that for staying there, not just doing a shot, like 1 or 2 shows, but really living and working in the territories at the time. I think he's kind of a trailblazer in that sense. He did a lot of things for the business.
What was so interesting was, though, that summer of 1972, Sakaguchi was in position where he could go either Inoki's New Japan or Baba's Old Japan.
Mm-hmm.
He could go either way because the old ship JWA was sinking, obviously. That after Inoki left and Baba left, and they put Sakaguchi in the main event position, that TV Asahi's World Pro Wrestling program wasn't doing too well on Monday night, and obviously that the drawing, they weren't drawing, and the people were not interested in the show without Baba or Inoki. Poor Sakaguchi had to carry the old company for 7 months period, and TV Asahi people is telling Sakaguchi, young Sakaguchi, that you should join with Inoki and merge the company. Will carry network, will carry the program, right? And summer of 1972, Sakaguchi could go either way, that the Nippon TV channel falls Giant Baba's All Japan or TV Asahi deal with Inoki. And I believe it's kind of like a old wrestling tale. It was Sakaguchi's wife that, do you want to go with Inoki's wife, Mitsuko Baisho, or do you want to go get along with Motoko Baba, the Baba's wife?
Mm-hmm.
And Sakaguchi's wife picked Mitsuko Baisho, the Hollywood actress. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Celebrity couple. If you remember Mitsuko Baisho, Inoki and Mitsuko Baisho.
She was beautiful. She was
married for about 17-year period and had 1 daughter. Yeah.
She was a movie actress or television actress?
Big movie.
Big movies, yeah. Did she sing as well?
Huh?
Did she sing too? Was she a singer?
They had couple hits. Yeah, but mainly like your big silver screen, big screen actress.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, as big as Inoki, or probably bigger at the time.
Probably, yeah. Like a Hollywood couple.
Hollywood couple, right? Very much Antonio Inoki, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was Sakaguchi's wife that they choose Mitsuko Baisho over Motoko Baba or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another wrestling famous tale. That summer of 1972, Sakaguchi could pick either way. The Baba's All Japan, because Baba told him, "We'll be waiting," right? And then they had a meeting with Inoki. Inoki wanted him to come in. It's like Sakaguchi could go either way and choose Antonio Inoki and TV Asahi's deal, and the rest of this history. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that there are these backstage urban legends of non-players, non-wrestlers also getting involved and changing the dynamics back then.
Yeah, but all these people who joined New Japan with Sakaguchi, Masashi Ozawa at the time, rookie, later on he became Killer Khan. Takashi Kimura, later on he became Kengo Kimura, and they all made the main event, right?
Mm-hmm. So,
and at the time, young Fujinami, that they created junior heavyweight division, and Sakaguchi stepped down and said, "Go ahead," right underneath Inoki. And then the TV, that Friday night, 8 o'clock, World Pro Wrestling on Channel 10. Now it's Channel 5, but the TV Asahi's primetime wrestling program every Friday night. That usually when you turn the TV on, 8 o'clock, Fujinami comes on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Open the show.
Yeah, like real fast, good looking, the junior heavyweight wrestling. And Sakaguchi basically stepped down, so he didn't want to be on TV. Isn't that interesting? When
Yeah.
Ricky Choshu turned heel for the first time, that the Killer Khan turned on Sakaguchi and Masa Saito come in. Ricky Choshu and Masa Saito and Killer Khan gave diving knee drop off the top rope onto Sakaguchi. Sakaguchi got carried out.
Oh my God.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm.
Yeah. So it was he had this very good role, and that's such a wrestling, like a promoter, like a didn't have the superstar ego, but the good for business type of person, and he really saved New Japan so many times, so many times,
all throughout the years. Not just
Inoki is so crazy that he'll be spending more than he'll be making, and Sakaguchi will be there and say like, "Sir, sir, no," right? And Inoki's 1 year younger than Sakaguchi, so Sakaguchi is so mature that he would stop, Inoki from doing another crazy thing. Yeah.
Did Giant Baba have a lieutenant like that, or was it more or less
it was Mrs. Baba.
Wife? Mrs. Baba.
Yeah.
So very different
because
dynamic.
It was more like, New Japan was always more of a big company, and All Japan Pro Wrestling was equally big, but it ran like your NWA territory,
like a family business almost.
One family, like a Vern Gagne's family, or Von Erich family, or Sheik and his wife, or Dick the Bruiser and his family, or you know what I'm saying, or
the
Eddie
Baba
Graham,
family.
His family, it was in NWA Florida, so it was always Baba's family, and the biggest rookie was Jumbo Tsuruta, Giant Baba and Jumbo Tsuruta. I mean, the perfect, right? Perfect, yeah. And also for All Japan, they always had, Baba always wanted to bring in star wrestler candidate from another sport. Olympic wrestler Jumbo Tsuruta, star sumo wrestler Tenru, and lot of amateur college champions, all the way to like people like John Tenta,
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, Akira Taue, former sumo wrestler. Yeah.
Kind of. Taue sort of reminded me of Sakaguchi as well.
Right. Not so motivated.
Right? Not so motivated. A little, not as much of a body guy, I guess, in comparison. He came from sumo.
Yeah, that's why Toshiaki Kawada became the way he was, because he was such an underdog that both Baba and Mrs. Baba probably didn't think Kawada would be anything, right? Kawada had to prove them wrong, of course.
Right.
And people like, Kobashi, they weren't going to promote him, because he had height, great athlete, good looking, but never was anything in high school sport. Of course, he played sport. Everybody played high school sport. But Kobashi didn't have the right background that the Mr. and Mrs. Baba was looking for. So Kobashi, too, had to prove them wrong. It was very interesting. And that goes to pro wrestling in Noah, too. That is why Misawa would put Toshiaki Ogawa, Yoshinari Ogawa as a champion, or people like the Inoue into the title match picture, And so it was like, do you remember, it's off the subject, but do you remember Misawa and the Yoshinari Kawada's tag team?
Toshiaki Kawada? Or Yoshinari Ogawa?
No. Yoshinari Ogawa and very beginning of
Noah.
And the very beginning of Noah and the very end of All Japan run.
Sure.
That Misawa and Ogawa became tag team. They named themselves Untouchable. Untouchable meaning that they wouldn't let Mrs. Baba do anything about it.
Isn't
that interesting? Yeah.
That's that whole aspect of pro wrestling in the late 2000s is another thing we could talk about for hours too.
Forever.
Their relationship.
Today's subject, Mr. Sakaguchi, Seiji Sakaguchi, his legacy and his accomplishment, his roles in Japanese wrestling history and New Japan history, and the relationship he had with Antonio Inoki, the whole accomplishment thing has been so overlooked. That's why we're talking about Sakaguchi today.
Mhm.
And always in great shape.
Yeah.
you know,
Always at the show. For years, he's around. If you're somebody who watches like a lot of New Japan World and you look at some of the older matches, if you spend some time poking around, you'll see him in the front row somewhere. He's on so many of the matches. He's always
he traveled.
presence.
'Cause always at the 150 shows a year, he was there working or not working. Yeah.
We should also mention his sons.
Oh, that Keiji Sakaguchi.
Yeah, and
real
Yukio.
famous actor. Yeah.
The
Yukio
wrestler.
Sakaguchi, now he's an MMA fighter, the pancreas fighter, and also DDT professional wrestler. Because Seiji Sakaguchi, dad, he told Yukio, no, you can't be a wrestler. No.
I saw him a couple times. He was a pretty, he was a good active wrestler for DDT, but he didn't have the special treatment,
And also Sakaguchi told his sons, don't be a wrestler.
Right. I actually just saw Yukio Sakaguchi on an HBO show called Tokyo Vice. He's in the opening scene. He's a Yakuza guy.
Tokyo Vice? Okay.
Just 30 seconds.
He's also an actor. Right.
He's just standing there.
His younger brother, Kenji Sakaguchi, is much, much bigger actor.
Right. Very popular.
Yeah. Very popular, yeah. Now he owns his own coffee brand. Anyhow, Sakaguchi didn't want his sons to become wrestlers. I mean, like a sober, right, about it. It's because, of course, their sons want to be wrestler, but Sakaguchi is sober enough to say, no, you are not going to be a wrestler. No.
He saw the top. The top was Inoki and Baba. He knows what to expect. So I don't know if he wanted that for his children. It's also
hard. I mean, it's a hard, way to live. You'll be gone 150 nights a year, every year, and you get hurt, you be injured, and the wrestlers cannot sign with life insurance because you'll be injured anyhow, right?
Sure.
And your medical insurance is always super expensive, and probably 20 to 25 years out of life you can be wrestler, but your life actually is a lot longer than that. There's so calm, right? Because Sakaguchi is the success story, but he didn't want his son to be in there. Isn't that interesting?
Right. Yeah.
Because both sons, I think that both Yukio and Kenji Sakaguchi, they used to come to New Japan Noge Dojo and just work out and sit with other wrestlers to have chanko. And when Muto and Hashimoto and Chono, actually Funaki and Akira Nogami too, then class of '84, they used to come in and just sit around with wrestlers. So the wrestlers were saying, when are you going to start? Right? Yeah, but the father Sakaguchi always said no, you're not going to.
No way.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And also Keiji Muto was Sakaguchi's judo boy, number one guy.
I see.
Judo background. Yeah. From the day one. Yeah.
So a little bit of not advantage, a little favoritism maybe.
Yeah, no, not favorite, but it's good. The Sakaguchi is so, thing in Muto right away that this guy is going to be the main event superstar.
I see.
Maybe a year from now, maybe 3 years from now, 5 years from now, but that guy will be the star. And when Keiji Muto was traveling in states like in NWA Crockett into WCW or even the Florida days, Sakaguchi and Muto will meet up in Las Vegas to spend a few days together. Yeah. So that was like Keiji Muto was a Sakaguchi boy all along. Yeah.
I see.
Very, very interesting. So Sakaguchi's, legacy is not just wrestler. Of course, he won the World League tournament, and he was also always Inoki's tag team partner and Riki Choshu's tag team partner. He had a singles title, and he was always there. But it was more like what he had done, or he still is, what he was for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we could say still is to this day. Yeah, that's right. He's still there.
Now, he was president, he was chairman, and now he's retired. But what do you call those the former president?
Yeah, like honorary member, honorary president, retired.
like a former president. He comes in once a week, just to have a cup of coffee with
have a cup of coffee.
I guess, yeah.
Not even Chanko, just a quick hello, and he's put in his time.
Yeah, and then also when Inoki passed away, he was the one who was holding Inoki's framed photo. Remember? Yeah. So that's like Seiji Sakaguchi is so important in this New Japan history. And I want today's English-speaking fans who are interested in Japanese wrestling that Sakaguchi was such a important figure that I want them to know about that.
I think that's reasonable, and I think it's important. I think especially in a post Inoki era that we're in now, this new, very new transition period, I guess you call it.
Yeah. Well, different.
Would you say so? Yeah, it's kind of like
Sakaguchi era into your Fujinami Choshu era, into combined with UWF era, and then the Three Musketeer era, all the way to Shinsuke Nakamura, that Katsuyori Shibata, the Hiroshi Tanahashi era, that the Sakaguchi was always there.
His DNA is in the New Japan and everything from not just from what you see in the wrestling.
Somebody with common sense.
Yeah.
Inoki, I mean, in good way, Inoki had no common sense, right? That's why he accomplished so much. Yeah.
Right.
But Sakaguchi was common sense in the real world. That he graduated from college and worked in a real company, and he was accomplished judoka, the world-class judoka turned professional wrestler. It didn't really have this superstar ego, but he was accomplished superstar too. And very, very interesting, wrestler.
I think compared with Inoki, Inoki seemed like a very impulsive kind of guy. He wanted to do it right then, right now.
Trick, right?
And I think Sakaguchi was more thoughtful and would like to analyze the decision.
So Inoki needed Sakaguchi as the number one lieutenant.
Absolutely. I think that's a good way to think about it. I think that's an easy way to imagine the dynamic of the relationship.
Yeah, New Japan wouldn't have become big company without Sakaguchi.
Well, that's cool.
So I
think that's important. I think it's good to talk about him.
To make. Yeah.
So if we have questions for you about Sakaguchi or anything else, where can we find
anything
you?
About wrestling, because
anything,
English speaking world, it seems like there are more fans interested in Japanese wrestling more now than ever, right?
Yeah, there's more access to it. And there's
English commentary, English play-by-play,
YouTube and streaming services.
Yes.
You remember the days of when we would have to wait a few weeks for the VHS tape.
VHS tapes, and it's like a second generation tape that doesn't even look good.
Yeah, I would have to wait until winter to see the G1 finals.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, it would have to happen. They would have to air, and then somebody dubbed it, and by then, and it's fourth generation. Yeah, so you got to get the tracking button going and everything. Remember that? Yeah. I'm glad those days are over in some ways.
Yeah. So it's like access. You have a lot better access, and if you look through Google's, you'll have more thing that you can learn about. And going to YouTube, you will find old footage of Japanese wrestling too. And it's such an era we're living. And if you know more about Japanese wrestling, I think the better you understand.
Yeah, especially even the modern stuff. I think there's so many little details that connect to each other, and like Muto and Naito coming up next week. That's a long story.
Oh yeah, and then people think it will be Muto's night, but I believe it's going to be Naito's night.
It kind of feels like that. Yeah. Is he going to shave his head too? I think he's going to shave his head.
Then look like Muto and the big hood, walk into the long ramp
wearing that same white jacket. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and then it might look like Muto, or all these things that Naito can do, like exact same moonsault and more. And it is Muto's retirement match, but I think Muto wants to leave. Like to be continued. This is going to be Naito's story. Naito will beat Muto clean, right? Probably.
I think it has to be. It has to be.
And also, this is going to be the year he's going to finally win IWGP World Heavyweight title. He'll probably win G1 Climax this year. And when you look back, 2023 will be Tetsuya Naito's year because of this match.
That's big stuff. The baton is being passed. They're passing the sword. And it's a good, I think, I'm speculating here. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel that the same rhythm we felt in the Nakamura match at Budokan. He kind of passed Muta.
Passed the torch. Yeah, he will become like a great Muta.
And they shared the DNA. That's what Tokyo Sports said. Yeah, so and we haven't seen Shinsuke Nakamura on WWE TV in a long time. So hey, I think
hidden.
He's kind of split his personalities between two people.
It was also Shinsuke Nakamura along with Michael Hayes' idea. When you go back to them, don't come back with nothing. Once we had a footage of Great Muta and Shinsuke Nakamura working, it has to come back with something that can be used in WWE.
Of course.
So it's a DNA, they call it.
Yes.
So I'm expecting Nakamura to regroup and remodel, and the new Shinsuke Nakamura will be around soon.
The great Shinsuke.
Probably.
Something like that.
That's pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah.
So Keiji Muto just wouldn't leave. He'll have his fingerprint all over the place.
And between Nakamura and Naito, those two have their own history in New Japan.
They're superstars,
but with each other.
Bigger. Yeah.
They have their own New Japan history between each other too. So I think that's
somewhere down the line they might meet again, huh?
So that's coming to the original point. If we learn all this history and we learn about how everything was put together, then we can see in the end this beautiful story that they're trying to tell based on facts.
At the end of the day, it would make a lot of sense, right?
And it is Naito's dream. And anybody who saw the moment in the ring a couple weeks ago, where I think it was at the New Japan show, Muto came in. His facial expression changed. I've never seen Naito look so like a little kid.
Because Tetsuya Naito's always doing this,
tranquilo, cool.
Yeah, like putting on his character, right? But like a real Naito will come out, and probably people love him a lot more that way.
Much more, because it's again, that connects back to the Takada match in '95. He was 11 years old. He went with his dad. He said, "I'm going to become a pro wrestler."
And also that the young Tanahashi was watching from like a nosebleed.
Amazing how one match can make so many special moments in people's lives, and we see that callback 20 years later.
All that's connected, huh?
Yeah. I think all of this stuff helps us enjoy it very, very much. And when I say it, I mean Japanese pro wrestling. Yeah. So 6 days from now, we'll be watching Keiji Muto against Tetsuya Naito. That's right.
Matchup. Yep.
It's on pay-per-view. But you know what? Are you going to it, Fumi?
Of course.
Okay. Well, I'll see you there. That's right.
Yeah.
We'll and our next show is, I think, we'll do.
I got the annual big press pass from Pro Wrestling Noah.
Oh yeah, we sent that out in January. The 1 year media pass. It's handy. Yeah. I think the next time we record will be in person, so everyone get ready for that.
Next episode, let's do it in Japan.
Okay, so before that, if we want to reach out, how can we reach out to you online?
On Twitter at Fumihiko Dayo, FUMIHIKO DAYO, Fumihiko Dayo on Twitter, or just Fumi Saito on Facebook.
And on Twitter, you can find me at Justin M. Knipper, KNIPPER. That's it for now. All right, that's it. Let me take it away.
So long from Tokyo.
Write that down. It's right. 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 Write that down. It's right.
'Tis the season for shopping, And with Rakuten, it's also the season for stacking up the savings. Use Rakuten to stack cash back at thousands of stores on top of holiday sales. That's like savings on savings. With Rakuten, you can save money on gifts for everyone on your list, from toys for the little one to kitchen gear for the hostess with the mostess to electronics for yourself at stores and on products like Walmart, KitchenAid, Samsung, and Best Buy. Shop with Rakuten and spend more time locating the perfect gift, less time trying promo codes that don't work. Did I mention that Rakuten is super easy to use? Just start your shopping at Rakuten.com or in the Rakuten app. Do your shopping like you normally would, and you'll get the cash back by PayPal or check. It's truly a no-brainer. Join for free at Rakuten.com or download the Rakuten app. That's Rakuten. Rakuten.com.